What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know, including whether Kenny Omega is injured, AEW reaches out to a depressed Lana, who will Paul Heyman side with, Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns? The Undertaker talks ending racism through pro wrestling, that time Vince McMahon thought Trump was showing him up, the real reason Natalya isn't being pushed, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now let's hit the intro and get straight into the first story. Now, our first story looks at whether Kenny Omega is injured. Kenny Omega is considered one of wrestling's finest workers, which makes it all the more incredible that he's been wrestling with an injury for some time. Omega, who is scheduled to challenge Jon Moxley for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship on 2nd December Dynamite, talked to Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer about his injury. So you know, a torn labrum, as you know, is no laughing matter. That's a surgery, but I have a very talented and unbelievable trainer, and you know our doctors of course are always monitoring and making sure we're doing okay, but our trainer Bryce Reddy is just a next level kind of guy. He's kept me together and in a condition where I'm able to perform. As long as I make that I see him 2 or 3 times a week I can lift, I have full range of motion. I just need to make sure that I can look after it and I can avoid having that surgery. Omega worked mostly in AEW's tag team ranks during the promotion's first year, but with the rumor of him having a strong singles push since dropping the AEW World Tag Team Championship, it's understandable why he wouldn't want to take the time off for surgery. AEW will have to be careful if it puts the AEW title on Omega, as it would hurt for him to forfeit the belt if he won it and was then injured. Next up, who will Paul Heyman side with, Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns? Paul Heyman spent many years as Brock Lesnar's advocate, dating back to the Beast's first run in the WWE as well as his 2012 return. However, with Lesnar gone from the WWE and Heyman now serving as Roman Reigns' special counsel, what happens if Lesnar returns to the company? It's a question fans have speculated on, as well as Heyman himself. Speaking with TalkSport, Heyman seems to know exactly what will happen. The safest thing that I can say for my well-being is that Brock Lesnar does whatever Brock Lesnar wants to do. It has been that way since Brock Lesnar was 5 years old, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I'm sticking to that soundbite. Now, if Lesnar does return, you can be certain that the WWE will run a program between the Beast and the Tribal Chief, and that Heyman will play a central role as fans wonder whom he'll side with. Next up, more guests for The Undertaker's final farewell. Reports are coming in of more people showing up for The Undertaker's final farewell at Survivor Series. While it's unknown just what will happen on the show or whether the guests will appear on television, here are some of the rumored guests. Referee Tim White, Savio Vega, Rikishi, Midian, Henry Godwin, Kurt Angle, The Godfather, Booker T, and Kane. And whilst we're on the topic of The Undertaker, he talks ending racism through pro wrestling. The Undertaker and Snoop Dogg's new collaboration on a clothing line led to a video chat on Instagram to promote the line. But during the talk, Snoop talked about how wrestling brings together people from different races and that it can be used to end racism. The Dogfather agreed, replying, "That's what we're doing right now. Anyone who has been a wrestling fan for long knows how it draws a diverse background of people together in their mutual love of the art." What do you think of Taker and Snoop Dogg's comments? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, AEW reaches out to Lana, who talks battling with depression. A current WWE superstar, Lana, recently talked about how she's had a rough year, not only dealing with her parents and husband catching COVID-19, but having to deal with online trolls. Lana discussed this in an episode of WWE Chronicle, as well as how not being around fans was hard on her, and that, for me, what was really hard was usually going to arenas and people boo you. It's sometimes about the energy. You're like, oh, I'm in control of this, right? But then when all of a sudden I don't interact with any people whatsoever and I'm just at home and I post something and everyone is just so mean, I couldn't handle it anymore, because that's like my only interaction with human beings is my Instagram account or Twitter, and now everyone in comments are like, you should be fired. Why are you not fired? You suck. You're this, you're that. But things got bad for WWE's ravishing Russian so much that she recalled texting my parents and being like, please pray for me, my mental health is doing really bad. I'm really depressed. I just can't take it anymore. I'm so sad. I don't want to do anything. Like, why even try? Why? It doesn't matter. You work hard, you do this like you can't post because everyone is going to tell you to jump off a cliff and kill yourself, and you're like, you're worth nothing. So it's like, well, why? Now, AEW's chief brand officer Brandy Rhodes reached out to Lana on Twitter and messaged, "If you ever need anybody to hype you up and remind you how amazing you are and how much this social media doesn't matter, reach out to me. I've got you." Definitely lovely advice, as depression can take a toll on a person with no external signs. Now, whilst we've joked about Lana a couple of times, we would never go so far as to go into outright bullying or trolling. It's just not on, and it just means that nobody's learnt anything from the Hana Kimura incident. Again, anybody battling depression, my DMs are always open on Twitter. Just drop me a message sometime. Next up, that time Vince McMahon thought Trump was showing him up. WrestleMania 23's Battle of the Billionaires between Vince McMahon's proxy Umaga and Donald Trump's proxy Bobby Lashley was arguably the biggest match on the card and still ranks as one of WrestleMania's greatest moments. Now, while Vinnie Mac and Donald are friends, that didn't stop Vince from reportedly getting miffed as he thought his on-screen rival was trying to show him up. Former WWE writer Court Bauer recently spoke with Chris Jericho on the Talk Is Jericho podcast about Vinnie Mac getting hot under the collar. Donald Trump was there doing the angle with Vince, and one night we're doing some sort of in-ring deal with Trump and Vince, and it was cold, and Donald Trump had that big winter jacket. Afterwards we're in the limo and Vince is just livid. They get along great, but there's that kindred spirit thing with them and everything. He felt like Donald had intentionally showed him up. He's like, "Did you see that? He was wearing that jacket. Clearly his shoulder pad was stuffed to look bigger. It's ridiculous." And it was really hard about Trump trying to look bigger than him. Now, thankfully for McMahon, he stayed friends with the Donald, who not only entered the WWE Hall of Fame, but the Oval Office as US President, providing Vince with a powerful ally. Next up, Bully Ray talks WWE punishing Aleister Black. Is current SmackDown superstar Aleister Black going to be punished by the WWE now that his wife Zelina Vega has been released from the promotion? Well, that's a subject WWE Hall of Famer Bully Ray brought up on Busted Open Radio when he compared Black's situation to that of Lana, another superstar whose spouse was released by the WWE. Obviously, Rusev comes on this show, says something that WWE doesn't like, and now his wife is paying for it, and she's been paying for it. Now, whether you like it or you don't like it, blah blah blah, trust me, that's what's going on. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on with Aleister Black, because of course they let Thea go. He might be just fine, but now let's just see if they toy with him. This is how WWE get you. Now, while rumours have been floating around that Lana's repeated beatdowns on Raw are part of a planned push, some fans have argued that 9 consecutive weeks of being put through the announcers table is no push, but a lesson to Rusev not to badmouth the place where his wife still wrestles. And finally, the real reason why Natalya is not being pushed. The second generation Natalya has been on WWE's main roster since 2008, but despite a reputation as an outstanding and reliable worker, she's only had 2 title runs, one with the Divas Championship and another with the SmackDown Women's Championship. This has led to fans asking why Natalya hasn't been pushed more, a subject longtime WWE producer Arn Anderson discussed recently on his podcast, The Arn Show. She should have an issue with everything that came out of creative if she wanted to get a push. She was so easy to do business with. She worked so hard to give you what you wanted. She was always on time. She was always there. Her gear looked good, you name it. At that particular point in time, her work really stood out because the ladies hadn't flamed out yet. Her work was immaculate from day one. Arn said that while Natalya hasn't received many titles, she's always on the line with Vince and has likely made a lot of money in the company. Through the years, Natalya has proven herself to be a solid worker who can work with any number of opponents and make them look good. Her credentials as a 2-time women's champion also makes her a credible opponent whether she's competing in singles or tag team action. Now, you may recall Natalya helped Ronda Rousey make the switch from MMA to pro wrestling, another sign of how much confidence the WWE has in her. Natalya may not be a main eventer, but she holds an important role in the WWE and is by no means enhancement talent. But there you have it, guys, the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook for exclusive lists, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.